Welcome everybody. I'm happy to talk to you about this very essential problem, just to put it a little bit into its perspective. Alone in Uganda and Kenya, where we are very active because we have a subsidiary in Kenya, more than 100,000 people die every year from liver cancer caused by aflatoxin in grains. So it's a very serious problem, aflatoxin, as most of you probably know, and it's addressed by the UN as the most critical issue in current food supply chain. Yeah, so obviously we are at the core of things here, because no milk product, no food product will be better than the grain it's made of. And that's why it's crucial that the grain is stored properly, looked after properly, and that's what I'm going to address a little bit in this presentation. Of course, this can only be part of a bigger strategy, the issues that I have time to present here, but other bigger quality control systems can be put in place. So that's really the focus of this presentation, to address some of the most important issues to avoid the generation of mycotoxins in the stored grain. So first of all, why do we get mycotoxins, and where does it start? Well, already in the field, each kernel will have between 1,000 and 10,000 fungus spores on the surface, because the funguses are in the soil, and therefore the fungus spores, they are only waiting for one thing, a drop of water, that'll kick them off to start thriving and growing. And that is why the entire procedure from harvest to storage and milling is so crucial and important. And so what really is the mycotoxins? Well, first you have fungus, and they are abundantly present. There are more than probably 1 million different fungus species. More than 10,000 have been identified and described, but there are many that are not yet described. Of course, the most famous is two of those that I've pictured here, Aspergillus flavus and Fusarium, which are responsible for some of the most abundant mycotoxins in the food supply chain: aflatoxin, A1, B1, ochratoxin, cerealinone, DON. You probably know some of them. So let's take a look and see what is really happening in the silo. Why is it that grains will generate the growth of funguses that will, in their metabolism, create the mycotoxins? Well, it's relatively simple. If the grain is not stored dry, then the funguses will grow, or insects will grow. And what I've pictured here is actually the most likely route from clean grain to mycotoxin contaminated grain, because the insects will create so-called hotspots where they consume the grain and thereby create heat, water vapor, and CO2, just like mammals. So the metabolism, the total metabolism that's going on inside the silo, is the generation of heat, water vapor, and CO2 if the grain is not stored safe at a dry condition and hopefully at a good temperature. So this is the thing that happens, and the hotspot that the insects create will make the hotspot wet, generate water vapor, and that'll spark off the mycotoxins, the funguses. Then you'll get mycotoxins, and then we have the problem. here are a few examples from the field. You can see some corn cobs here already contaminated in the field. Climate changes have also been accused of some of the problems because the cobs open prematurely. And here we have probably generation of mycotoxins, very bad for the chicken industry because the time to mature from broiler to slaughterhouse ripe chicken can increase with 5 to even more days because of the aflatoxin. Here's another example, fungus growing on barley. If you are a beer producer or whiskey producer, this is your nightmare because then whatever you're doing in the malting process, it will not turn out to become a consumer product. Wheat is also subject to a lot of different mycotoxins. Dung is probably the biggest problem in wheat. There has been many problems in Europe in the last 10 years when we've had wet harvests there, but also in paddy rice and other commodities. If you have a little bit wet harvest, then it's not enough to take care of it in the drying and milling process, and that's a problem. So how to detect it, how to avoid it? Well, historically, temperature monitoring has been used a lot to monitor the grain. It's not really a good idea because grain is very insulating. So a temperature sensor will only see a hotspot if it's actually inside the hotspot. But CO2 measurement that I'm the inventor of in the silo is a very good idea because CO2 is a gas and gases will migrate in all directions in the silo, and that's why a simple CO2 sensor in the grain mass, not in the headspace, but in the grain mass, will easily detect emerging insect or fungus growth and will therefore alert you that in this particular silo you have to do something in order to avoid further growth of the microbiology that will generate the mycotoxins. Here's an example from a flour mill in Honduras. They had a lot of nice durum wheat, and you can see the temperature curves, the orange, red, and blue. They didn't move at all because the hotspot was not where the sensors were, but you can see on the CO2 curve that from day one the CO2 increased a lot, and by the time I got to this side it was no longer possible to get the wheat out of the silo as a free-flowing grain. It had to be digged out. So this shows the power of CO2 monitoring and how important it is in order to avoid mycotoxins. In order to make everything easy to understand for laymen in the milling industry, or especially in the grain storage industry, we have generated a smart app, and I have even made some algorithms generally available in the scientific communities on how to actually use monitoring data to make an AI-based algorithm to predict both how big a risk factor, meaning the risk of infestation and mycotoxins, and to calculate how many weeks of safe storage would be available in each silo. And as you can see, this is a very helpful tool for anybody in grain storage or milling, because the app will simply tell you online which silo has the highest danger, which silo should you address now in order to avoid further problems. And that's of course a huge help. We have been very successful with this app because it interprets the monitoring data, which normally are only poorly understood by the operators of silo facilities. Here I'll show you how bad things can get. This is was me climbing into the silo and doing the film. There was 80 degrees in that silo. You can see on the temperature curves that the red curve, the maximum temperature, is going really, really high. And some people in our online center detected the problem and took some days to get the fan started because the rich owner, he was not really easy to get hold of. But the bottom line here is that after you have the unwanted biological process in the silo, it can grow further, especially if you're storing oilseed, and then you may have a serious problem. So what are the strategies to avoid mycotoxins? Well, my recommendation after 30 years in grain monitoring, I can tell you it's CO2, CO2, and CO2. And put the sensor in the grain. That's where you will detect biology. That's where you will see if you have a problem that may come up at a later time. What can you do if you detect a problem? Yeah, of course you should mill the worst silo first. That's what is the moneymaker for you, saving that grain that could be lost with good procedures. That's the obvious solution. Of course, there are operational things you can do. If you have a starting infestation, you can rotate the grain to another silo. You can apply chilling, cooling the grain down. That'll put the biology to sleep. You can use natural fumigation, organic fumigation, which we also deliver. And you can also do other types of fumigation. We are not recommending phosphine fumigation if it can be avoided. It is a pesticide and it's not really effective anymore because of resistance. But there are a number of strategies that you can apply, of course dependent on your total storage volume and in whatever context you are having the stuff, the grain processed in your facility. So we also recommend put in a quality control system on your stored grain side and make strategies so that you can avoid the infestation and avoid mycotoxins. The last thing I want to tell you a little bit about, we have developed a system for natural fumigation, organic way of storing grain. It has some disadvantages and some advantages over other strategies. The bottom line is you can kill the most of the biology in silos by flushing them with nitrogen. We have more than 100 commercial paddy silos in Asia protected with this system. And if you're interested in it, we're available in booth C20 in the exhibition. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank